Were in this place and you had to go someplace to escape all of these effects.
Right. I didn't understand at the time that God can protect you anywhere you are. So I thought that I needed to run away
Hmm.
from angry witches, from demons, whatever. So I'm like, I'm gonna join the Marine Corps
Hmm.
and run away. So I did. And in boot camp was where I got saved. Um, it was Pentecostal service, very loud, very crazy music,
Hmm.
dancing, everything. Like, this is very different from where I've come from. The worship was amazing. And I wanted to be part of that just loving worship to God. I'm like, why do these people love this God? I didn't get it. Um, but the preacher was talking about how Jesus was alive, that he was a living God, that he wasn't just a spirit or he wasn't just a man or a good teacher. Um, that he was alive and powerful. And I actually, it was Luke chapter 24, and I heard an angel speak along with the preacher and said, "Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen."
Hmm.
And that hit me so hard. uh, and God was telling me that I couldn't worship him like I worshiped Satan. That it wasn't the same thing. It didn't work
Hmm.
like that. Uh, thank God. um, and he was calling me to love on him and love on his people. So that's when I asked him to be my savior and
Wow.
Lord.
Wow. Total transformation at that point. I think it's
Hmm.
worthy to note that you were very spiritually sensitive, obviously. Some people are more inclined for whatever reason. Others are resistant to spiritual influences. They say,
Yeah.
the spirits don't exist or whatever, but they do.
Oh, yes.
Spirits exist in wherever we live in our domain, community, what have you. We don't live in a spiritual vacuum, but
No.
you at an early age acknowledged that fact that we live not in a physical world as much as we live in a spiritual world.
Oh yeah, it's for me now the spiritual is much more real than the physical. It's you've been to heaven. It is much more real than this world
Yes.
is. Um
Yes. Yes, that's a reality that those of us who have had these encounters testify that heaven in the spiritual realm is more real than this world. That's kind of hard to get your head around because you think, how can I can see, I can touch,
yeah.
all of my five senses, I can realize this world, but what we don't understand in the spiritual realm, there are multiple senses beyond the five senses. And
Mm-hmm.
also, the reality is not defined by what we see, but what actually exists.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, they're also on your journey. Now you're a believer, but there's going to be a point in which you are brought to a face-to-face encounter with Jesus Christ Himself.
Right. So, even after I was saved, the Marine Corps isn't conducive to very holy living. I'll just say that. So, I wasn't really living as a Christian should. Um, I was with my now ex-husband. I was pregnant with, it was my fifth pregnancy. And I started to miscarry. So I went to the hospital. I lost a lot of blood, too much. And um, I was in the hospital for a couple days before they did surgery. They didn't let me eat before the surgery for several days. So I was very weak. I had lost a lot of blood. And so they take me into the surgery room they're doing whatever they're doing. I wake up in the middle of the surgery, and I can sense as a mother, I know my baby's not in me anymore. And I try to get up to look. And I hear the surgeon or doctor tell me to lay still. And he orders more anesthesia. And after they give me more anesthesia, that's when I die. And it was odd. I saw like the back of my eyelids, and then I saw the top half of the operating room. And I heard a voice, I don't know if it was an angel or God, say, "Don't look." So I'm like, okay. And I look up, and everything goes black, pitch black. And I had this sensation of moving very quickly upwards. And then I stop, and everything is very still and very quiet. And God sort of opens my eyes, and there's this fiery cloud all around me. And it's all sorts of different colors. Just this beautiful glowing, it's not a mist. It's hard to describe. Oh, there's my cat. So I become aware that I'm sitting, and I'm sitting on a park bench. And then I become aware that there's someone sitting next to me on my right. So I turn and look, and it's my previously deceased aunt. And we talk for a little bit, just about anything, what I was doing before, just life, just not nonsense, but trivial things. Mm-hmm. And then I'll never forget this, because she turns her head really fast, like someone called her. And I know now that the Lord called her, and she disappears. And then before I fully register, she's gone. The Lord Jesus is sitting exactly where she was, just right next to me on the bench. But I panic. Because I looked at him, I looked into his eyes, and I knew that he knew all of the horrible things I had done. And I didn't want him near me. I had the urge to actually claw at his face, which was mortifying afterwards. But at the time, I just was so scared of judgment, of his wrath. And he didn't do anything. He just sat there and waited. And he just emanated peace. And eventually, I calmed down enough to realize that he wasn't trying to hurt me. I need another tissue, excuse me.
Hey, that should be a pre-qualification for all of these interviews. You have to have some tissue nearby. I've got mine, by the way. So, please. So you're at the point now where you're before the Lord himself. He's right there, and you're expecting judgment for all that you had done. The satanic cult, casting spells against Christians, all of these things. Even though you're saved, you're born anew at this point, it's still, you're expecting to be judged harshly.
Yes. And I just kind of waited for the hammer to drop, like for him to send me away. But that didn't happen. What he actually did, what confused me for a split second, he was wearing robes, soft, like cream-colored robes, and he pulled them apart. And it wasn't his chest there. It was a portal with all of creation inside. And I was mesmerized by that sight. And I completely forgot my fear. And he pulled them apart. And it wasn't his chest there. It was a portal with all of creation inside. And I was mesmerized by that sight. And I completely forgot my fear. And I was leaning forward to look inside the portal because it was just beautiful and complex. And he was just communicating that I am God, basically. It's just all he was communicating to me. But it didn't fully click yet. That part didn't click. And after he did that, he told me to look again, and he pulled the earth before us and had me watch it and have had everything going on in real time. We watched it. And he showed me how life was complex, and he placed everything on purpose for his purposes, that life was very precious to him. And well, that made me feel worse because I had not cherished life. I knew I had failed. And it was silent. There was no noise, and we sat in silence. And I'm looking at the earth, not wanting to look at him. And he eventually tells me to look at him. I very slowly obey. And I look into his eyes. And he wasn't condemning me. He was just... He was stern, but he wasn't angry. And he was just merciful. It was only love and power in his eyes. That was it.
Now you've got me going, so because I've looked into those eyes. I know what you're talking about. Yes,
they're
please continue.
Clear and the clearest eyes I've ever seen. Gosh, what happened after that?
It's almost as though nothing else matters, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
When you look into those eyes, yes. And everything else kind of evaporates beyond that. But at this point, things have kind of shifted for you because you were expecting to be judged, go before the judgment seat, and then rendering the judgment and found guilty. But that wasn't going to be the case for you, was it?
Right. So when I saw my aunt, actually, I expected her to sort of guide me through heaven. I don't know. Being dead is strange. I didn't know what to expect. And at that point, I just figured God would send me wherever he was sending me, away in heaven to rest. And so he surprised me with a choice to come back or go. And he told me, first he explained a little bit about how free will fits into his overarching plan. That I could choose either, that it was all right if I chose either, that he wasn't going to be angry either way. He really emphasized that I had the free choice. And so I chose to come back. And I asked him what I would be doing Like, what did he want me to do? Because he said that he was sending me back to continue my mission. And I was like, okay, what's my mission? uh, but he didn't tell me. He told me that he would tell me at the appropriate time to do what it was that he called me to do and to carry what he had set out for me to carry. So I was like, okay. At the time, I was not thrilled with that answer. um, but he was just so gentle about it. That was just completely no pressure, but very stern and unmoving at the same time. So he sent me back, and I asked him if I could have as much time to do good as I had done evil. So he wanted me to really affirm in my heart to go back, not just make a head decision, but really want to go back. So he sent me back, and I woke up in the ward, and I had an oxygen mask on. So I took that off, and I freaked out because I couldn't breathe. So at some point I had stopped breathing, which I know I died, but I put it back on, and I hear this voice from across the ward say, "Don't worry, God has great things for you." And so what I didn't tell you actually is before this, the year previous, I had attempted suicide. And I had been in Balboa Hospital. And I had heard that same voice say in that exact tone and cadence that phrase. So I tried to get up and look at the person because now I believe that was an angel reassuring me because I heard that voice in the hospital before. So
I'm glad you interjected what it was prior to the experience, because just it seemed that Jesus had really allayed all of the guilt, all of the misgivings and about what you had done prior, and it kind of like he cleansed you of that and assured you that your slate had been wiped clean.
Yeah, he I didn't really understand I'm gonna start crying again. I didn't understand at all what it was to be a Christian. But Jesus really sort of hammered it home that all he wanted was a relationship. That's all he wants. We're his children, quite literally. And that's what he wants. He just wants us to love him back.